In a small, vibrant village nestled deep within the heart of Africa, a young woman named Amara was known for her beauty, intelligence, and grace. Everyone in the village admired her, and many believed she was destined for greatness. Yet, Amara's heart ached as she grew older, for her father, a wise and revered elder, had always told her that she was meant to marry a man named Mike. Amara had heard the tale many times before, but the name always felt strange to her. There was no Mike in the village. She had hoped that perhaps it was just a saying, a metaphor, or an old family tradition that would not come to pass. But as the years went by, she realized that the prophecy was much more than that. She grew anxious, wondering who this mysterious Mike might be, and when she would meet him. The thought of marrying someone whose identity was unknown filled her with both hope and dread. One day, Amara sought out the village prophet, an old man named Afolabi, who was known for his connection to the spiritual world. His wisdom was sought after by many, and it was said that he had the power to see the future. Amara, desperate for answers, walked to his humble hut and sat before him, explaining her predicament. Prophet Afolabi looked at her with kind eyes and nodded slowly. "Amara, the man you are destined to marry is named Mike. But I cannot tell you who he is. You will recognize him when the time comes. How will I know him?" Amara asked, her voice quivering with uncertainty. "You will know," Prophet Afolabi replied, "but there is more. You must trust the path that lies ahead. The name Mike will appear to you in many forms. But remember, it is the heart that will reveal the truth." A few weeks after her meeting with the prophet, Amara's life took an unexpected turn. One evening, as the sun set over the village, 5 strangers arrived in town. They were all tall, handsome, and well-dressed, each one carrying an air of confidence. They spoke different languages but seemed to share a common bond, an unspoken understanding between them. Each man introduced himself in turn, and to Amara's shock, they all had the same name, Mike. The first Mike was a traveler from the bustling city of Lagos. He was charming, with a warm smile that made everyone around him feel at ease. He had a deep voice that resonated with authority, and his intelligence shone through in every conversation. He was quick to offer advice and always seemed to know the right thing to say. Amara was immediately drawn to his confidence and eloquence. The second Mike was a farmer from the northern hills. He had strong hands and a rugged appearance, with a quiet demeanor that intrigued Amara. His humility stood in stark contrast to the city Mike, but there was something deeply sincere in his eyes. He had a way of listening that made Amara feel heard and understood. She admired his patience and calmness. The third Mike was a musician, a talented guitarist with a passion for storytelling. His music could melt even the coldest of hearts, and his laughter was infectious. He was spontaneous, carefree, and full of life, making Amara feel alive in ways she had never experienced before. There was a spark between them that could not be denied. The fourth Mike was a teacher, a scholar who spent his days imparting knowledge to the youth of the village. He was soft-spoken but highly intellectual, with a gentle spirit that resonated deeply with Amara. His love for learning and his respect for the world around him were qualities that Amara admired greatly. She felt a connection to his wisdom and thoughtfulness. Finally, the fifth Mike was a healer, a woman of great empathy and compassion. She had a nurturing presence that immediately put Amara at ease. The healer's calm and loving nature reminded Amara of the most cherished memories of her childhood. She was kind, intuitive, and always seemed to know what others needed, often before they spoke it aloud. Amara spent the following days in deep thought, her mind spinning with confusion. Each Mike was so different, yet all of them seemed to possess qualities that she found admirable. She couldn't deny the strong attraction she felt toward each one, but none of them stood out as the true Mike from her prophecy. How could she choose? How could she be sure which one was meant for her? Each Mike treated her with kindness and respect. They all seemed to genuinely care for her, offering her gifts, words of encouragement, and moments of shared laughter. But Amara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being pulled in different directions. Her heart fluttered at the thought of each of them, yet it also ached with uncertainty. In moments of quiet reflection, Amara would ask herself, which Mike is the right one? Is it the confident traveler, the humble farmer, the free-spirited musician, the wise teacher, or the nurturing healer? She longed for the prophet's guidance, but the thought of asking him again filled her with fear. What if she had misunderstood the prophecy? What if the right Mike was not among the five? Amara couldn't shake her doubt. Each day, she felt more conflicted. The days with the five Mikes felt like a whirlwind, with each one pulling her in a different direction. As much as she enjoyed the time she spent with each of them, a part of her felt lost. She couldn't decide who to trust with her heart. She had been raised to believe that love would reveal itself through time, but time alone wasn't enough to help her make this decision. In the middle of her internal struggle, Amara returned to the prophet's home, hoping for some clarity. But when she arrived, she was struck with a wave of sadness. Afalabi's house stood quiet, with no sound of his voice or presence. She asked the villagers, only to learn that the prophet had passed away the night before. Grief swept over her, and a sense of finality closed in. Without the prophet's guidance, Amara felt even more alone in her search for the right Mike. The prophecy had been her only hope, but now she was left with nothing but her instincts and her own judgment. Her friends and family tried to console her, but Amara knew that the path ahead would not be easy. She decided that she would have to rely on her heart and her experiences with the Mikes. After all, if the prophecy had led her to this point, perhaps it was up to her to figure out the rest. She would have to trust herself more than ever. Amara spent the next few days with Mike the Traveler, the one from Lagos. His energy was magnetic, and he often swept her into exciting conversations about places he had visited and experiences he had lived through. There was no denying that his life was full of adventure and discovery, and his stories sparked a longing in Amara to see the world beyond the village. He had a charm about him that made everything seem possible, a confidence that made her feel like anything could happen if they were together. They went on walks by the river, where Mike would share his dreams and aspirations. He spoke of building a life filled with travel, and Amara couldn't help but imagine herself beside him, discovering new lands and cultures. She felt a deep connection with him, one that was built on shared dreams and a love for life's vast possibilities. However, there was something unsettling about Mike the Traveler. As much as he was open about his experiences, he remained closed off in other ways. He rarely spoke of his past or his family, and when Amara asked about his roots, he would redirect the conversation. It was as if he had been running from something, and that unsettled her. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Mike spoke of his desire for freedom above all else. "I love you, Amara," he said softly, "but I will always choose the road over the home. I cannot be tied down." His words hung in the air, and Amara realized that while she admired his adventurous spirit, his need for freedom would likely mean she could never be his true partner. She was looking for someone who would commit to her and their future, not someone who would always be on the move. After leaving the traveler behind, Amara spent time with Mike the farmer, a man of the earth. Mike was kind, patient, and grounded. He was a man who spent his days working the land, tending to crops, and ensuring that the village's needs were met. His strength came not from physical power, but from his deep connection to nature and his ability to patiently nurture life. Amara found herself drawn to his quiet wisdom. Mike the farmer was unhurried, taking his time with every task, whether it was plowing the fields or mending fences. There was a peacefulness about him that calmed Amara's restless heart. As they spent more time together, she found herself smiling at the simple joys of life, the feel of the soil beneath her feet, the scent of fresh produce, the quiet moments shared under the stars. However, despite their growing bond, Amara noticed that Mike the farmer was not as open about his emotions. While he was an attentive listener, he never shared much about himself. When she asked him about his past, he would simply say, "The land is all I need." His contentment with his life was admirable, but Amara began to wonder if he was truly ready for a partnership that involved more than the land. One evening, as they sat in his modest home, Mike confessed, "Amara, I love you. But the land calls me. It is my first love, and I cannot deny it. If you want a life by my side, you must understand that I will always be tied to this place." Amara's heart sank. She realized that while Mike the farmer's quiet nature and steadiness were comforting, he was not the one she was meant to be with. She needed more than a life rooted in the soil. She needed someone whose soul would be entwined with hers, someone who was willing to share dreams beyond the horizon. Next, Amara spent time with Mike the musician, whose carefree spirit and love for life made every moment feel like a celebration. He played his guitar with passion, and his melodies seemed to transport Amara to another world. She couldn't help but smile when he strummed the strings, his music filling the air with warmth and joy. His energy was infectious, and he made her feel alive in ways she had never experienced. They spent days walking through the village, laughing, and enjoying the music that flowed from Mike's guitar. He was spontaneous and creative, always coming up with new songs, and he invited Amara to join him in his artistic journey. Together, they painted pictures with their voices, weaving stories with the tunes of his guitar. However, as much as Amara enjoyed his company, she began to feel that there was a lack of depth in their relationship. Mike the musician was charming, but he was also a bit flighty. He would often disappear for hours, lost in his music, without a word. While his carefree nature was refreshing, Amara found herself yearning for more than just a fleeting connection. She needed someone who could offer her more than fun and spontaneity. She needed stability. One night, as they sat under the stars, Mike strummed his guitar and looked at Amara with a smile. "I love you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "But I am not meant to be tied down. My music is my one true love. I cannot offer you more than what I am." Amara felt a pang of sorrow in her heart. As much as she adored Mike the musician, she knew that his music would always come before anything else. She needed a partner who could share her dreams and build a future with her, not someone who was always chasing the next melody. Amara's next journey led her to Mike the teacher. He was a gentle man with a passion for learning, who dedicated his life to educating the children of the village. His classroom was filled with books, and his heart was filled with knowledge. Amara was drawn to his intellect and the way he spoke about the world. Every conversation with him was an exploration of ideas, and she admired how he could see beyond the present, envisioning a better future for everyone. She visited him often in his school, where they spent hours discussing philosophy, culture, and the ways in which they could improve the world around them. His dedication to teaching inspired Amara, and she felt a connection to his vision. They both dreamed of a future where knowledge and kindness shaped the world. Yet, there was a certain distance in Mike the teacher's world. His life revolved around his students and his work, and while he was caring, he often seemed absorbed in his mission to improve the community through education. Amara admired him deeply for his devotion, but she couldn't help feeling that she was being left on the sidelines of his passion. One evening, as they sat in his study, surrounded by books, Amara asked, "Mike, do you ever think about the future outside of this classroom? Do you see us together in that future?" Mike looked at her with deep affection, but there was a shadow in his eyes. "I love you, Amara, but my first love is the pursuit of knowledge. I cannot be the man you need if you desire more than intellectual connection. My heart belongs to these books and these children." Amara's heart heavy, she realized that Mike the teacher's world was one of his own creation, a world where she couldn't quite fit. His devotion to knowledge was beautiful, but it left little space for a partnership that required emotional depth beyond the written word. The final Mike, the healer, was unlike anyone Amara had met before. She was a woman of peace, who had the gift of healing with her hands and her heart. She was intuitive, empathetic, and always seemed to know what people needed before they even spoke. Mike the healer had a calming presence that put everyone at ease, and Amara felt a deep sense of trust every time she was near her. There was something about her gentle spirit that resonated with Amara's own heart. They spent days together, talking about the healing arts and the natural world. Mike the healer taught Amara about plants, herbs, and spiritual practices that could heal both the body and the soul. The more time they spent together, the more Amara admired her strength and gentleness. It was as though Mike had a deep understanding of the human heart, and Amara found herself opening up in ways she never had before. However, as much as Amara admired Mike's ability to heal and her understanding of the world, there was a part of her that still felt unsure. While Mike the healer seemed to possess all the qualities Amara had longed for, there was a quiet sadness in her eyes that Amara couldn't quite place. It was as if Mike was guarding a secret, something that prevented her from fully reaching her. One day, as they sat by the river, Mike the healer looked at Amara with tears in her eyes. "I love you, Amara," she said softly, "but I am afraid that I am not the one for you. My gift of healing comes with a price. I am meant to help others, to guide them, but I cannot give you the love you deserve." Amara felt the weight of her words in her chest. She realized that while Mike the healer had everything she needed emotionally, her journey to self-discovery had made her realize that love was not just about kindness and care, it was about shared visions for the future. Mike the healer, though wise and compassionate, was not the one who would walk beside her as an equal partner. Amara spent many sleepless nights, reflecting on her time with each of the Mikes. Each man had his own unique qualities, and each had shown her a different part of herself. Yet, none of them fully embodied the prophecy she had been given. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. The man she was meant to marry was not one of them, not in the way she had thought. She went to the river, sitting alone, allowing the quiet sound of the flowing water to clear her mind. She thought back to Prophet Afalabi's words. "You will recognize him when the time comes." And then it hit her. The key to the prophecy was not in the name or the title or even the role each man played. The key was in how they made her feel. It wasn't just about love, it was about partnership, balance, and shared purpose. The right Mike wasn't someone who could offer her the perfect life in one aspect. The right Mike was the one who could offer her a future where all the pieces of her life fit together. Amara realized she had been looking at them all wrong. It wasn't about their profession or their skills. It was about how they complemented her vision for the life they could create together. With clarity in her heart, Amara decided to meet with all 5 Mikes one final time. Amara gathered the 5 Mikes at the village square, her heart calm and resolute. She knew what she had to do now. As they all stood before her, she spoke clearly, her voice strong with purpose. "Each of you has shown me a different part of myself," she began. "I have learned from each of you, and I admire you deeply. But I have come to understand that the right Mike is not about your name or your role in life. It is about the love and understanding we share, and the future we will build together." The Mikes looked at each other, confused, as Amara continued. "I have been given a gift," she said, smiling softly. "The gift of choice. But it is not about choosing one over the others. It is about finding the one who walks beside me as an equal, who will help me build a future together, filled with love and respect." The 5 Mikes looked at Amara, realizing what she was saying. One by one, they began to step forward, each acknowledging the beauty of her words and the truth they held. Amara knew that it was time to follow her heart, not just to choose one, but to embrace the future that awaited her with the right man. And that man was not defined by the name or the role, but by the love they would create together. Amara woke up the next morning with a new sense of clarity. She knew what she had to do. After reflecting deeply on the qualities of each Mike, she realized that what truly mattered wasn't who was the most talented, wise, or charming. It was who made her feel like her truest self. Each Mike had shown her a different aspect of her character, but it was only with one of them that she felt completely at home. It wasn't the traveler who made her feel free, nor the farmer who made her feel grounded, nor the musician who made her heart sing. It was the man who understood her soul, who could offer her both companionship and stability. She walked to the village square where the 5 Mikes had gathered earlier. Her heart was racing, but her mind was resolute. Amara stood before them, her gaze sweeping over the 5 men. "I have made my choice," she said, her voice steady and firm. "The man I choose is the one who will share my life, my dreams, and my future. It is not about where we come from or what we have achieved. It is about what we will build together. The one who is right for me is the one who will stand beside me through thick and thin." With those words, she took a deep breath, looking directly into the eyes of the one who had always made her feel complete. The man who stood before her now, Mike the teacher, had always made her feel like she could learn and grow. He wasn't just a scholar, he was a listener, a guide, and a compassionate presence in her life. From the very beginning, he had offered Amara more than just knowledge. He had offered her wisdom and understanding. While she had initially thought that his intellectual pursuits might leave little room for their future together, Amara had come to realize that his wisdom was the key to their shared journey. Together, they could grow and explore the world, not just through books but through life's experiences, learning and evolving hand in hand. Mike the teacher smiled softly as Amara made her decision. He had always believed in her ability to see beyond the surface. When she spoke of their future, he knew deep down that he was the one meant to walk beside her. He was not perfect, but his imperfections matched her own, and together, they could build a life that celebrated both their strengths and weaknesses. The bond they shared was based on respect, intellectual connection, and a deep understanding of each other's hearts. As they stood in the village square, surrounded by the other Mikes who had supported Amara's journey, Mike the teacher took her hand, knowing that they were about to embark on a beautiful adventure. The days leading up to their wedding were filled with excitement and joy. Amara and Mike the teacher spent their time planning their future together, dreaming of the life they would share. Their families and friends gathered to celebrate the union, and the village came alive with preparations for the wedding. Amara couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude as she watched the community come together, each person contributing in their own way. There was a sense of unity and love in the air, and it felt like the entire village was celebrating not just her marriage, but the love they all shared. Mike the teacher was just as excited. He had never imagined that his path would lead him here, to this moment with Amara. But as they worked side by side, planning every detail of their wedding, he realized how right this all felt. There was no doubt in his heart anymore. He was certain that he was meant to be with Amara, to build a life with her full of love, understanding, and shared dreams. He watched her laugh and dance as the preparations continued, and he knew that the love they shared would only grow stronger as they began their journey together. This was just the beginning. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear, the sun shining down on the village as if the heavens themselves were celebrating Amara and Mike's union. The village was decorated with flowers, and the air was filled with the sounds of music and laughter. Amara stood in her bridal gown, a beautiful creation made from the finest fabrics, adorned with intricate beadwork that shimmered in the light. She looked every bit the queen she had always been destined to be, but it was the smile on her face that truly made her radiate. Mike the teacher stood at the altar, his heart pounding with excitement. As Amara walked toward him, he felt as though the world had stopped turning. The love in her eyes was a reflection of the deep bond they had built together. With each step she took, he felt more certain that he was standing at the edge of the most beautiful journey of his life. When they finally met at the altar, they exchanged vows, promising to support each other, to grow together, and to cherish one another for all their days. The village cheered, and Amara and Mike the teacher were married, their love sealed with a kiss. As the wedding celebrations continued late into the night, Amara and Mike the teacher shared a quiet moment away from the festivities. They stood hand in hand beneath the stars, looking out over the village they would now call home together. There was a sense of peace in the air, and Amara felt the weight of the prophecy finally lift from her shoulders. It had led her to this moment, to this man who was more than she had ever imagined. She had found her true partner, someone who understood her heart and her dreams, someone who would walk beside her through all of life's challenges. Mike the teacher squeezed her hand, sensing her thoughts. "We've only just begun, Amara," he said softly, his voice full of promise. "There is so much more to discover, so much more to learn. But with you by my side, I know we can face anything together." Amara smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest that filled her entire being. For the first time in years, she felt completely at home. The journey ahead would be one of love, growth, and discovery, and she knew that together, they could build a life that was as rich and meaningful as the love they shared. Amara and Mike, the teacher's life together was filled with small, beautiful moments. They settled into their home, a cozy cottage on the edge of the village, surrounded by nature. Every morning, they would rise together and share a quiet breakfast, discussing their plans for the day. Amara loved the way Mike approached life with both logic and care, always thinking ahead while still embracing the present. They worked together, side by side, as they transformed their new home into a sanctuary. In the evenings, after a long day of work, they would sit on the porch and listen to the sounds of the village. The laughter of children playing, the rhythmic hum of the wind through the trees. Mike often played his guitar, the melodies filling the air as Amara looked out over the fields they were cultivating. Life was peaceful, and Amara knew she had made the right choice. Every day, she grew more and more in love with Mike the teacher. He was everything she had dreamed of, wise, loving, and, most importantly, present. Though life with Mike was filled with love, it was not without its challenges. Early in their marriage, Amara found herself struggling with the demands of running a household and supporting Mike's work as a teacher. She had always been a self-sufficient woman, but now, as a wife, she was learning to balance her independence with the needs of their new life together. Mike's long hours at the school often meant that Amara was left to manage things at home, and at times, she felt overwhelmed. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, Amara confided in Mike. "I love being with you, but I'm struggling to keep up with everything," she admitted. Mike listened intently, his eyes soft with understanding. "We'll figure it out together," he reassured her. "You don't have to do it all alone." From that day forward, they worked as a team, dividing their responsibilities and finding new ways to support each other. With time, Amara learned that while marriage required compromise, it also brought a deeper connection and a shared strength. Their bond grew stronger with each challenge they faced together. As the months passed, Amara and Mike the teacher began to look for new ways to contribute to the community. Inspired by their shared love for learning, they decided to start a small school on their property for the village children. Amara had always been passionate about nurturing young minds, and Mike's teaching experience was invaluable. Together, they created a space where children could learn not only from books but also from the world around them. The school quickly became a success, and soon children from neighboring villages began attending. Amara and Mike found fulfillment in teaching, watching the children grow in knowledge and confidence. Their school became a symbol of hope for the community, a place where future generations would be empowered to dream big and achieve greatness. Amara knew that they had created something special, and as she watched Mike teach with passion, she realized that their love for each other had only deepened through their shared commitment to the children. As time passed, Amara and Mike began to consider starting a family of their own. They had talked about it often, imagining the children they would raise together and the life they would provide. Amara had always wanted to be a mother, and Mike shared that dream with her. After much discussion, they decided it was time. Soon after, Amara discovered she was pregnant, and their joy knew no bounds. Mike was overjoyed, and together they prepared for the arrival of their child. The anticipation of becoming parents brought them even closer, as they planned for the future and prepared their home for the baby. Amara felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life they were building together, and as her belly grew, so did their love for each other. They couldn't wait to meet the little one who would complete their family and make their lives even more beautiful. The day Amara went into labor, the entire village seemed to hold its breath. Mike stayed by her side the entire time, his presence a calming force as they both prepared for the arrival of their child. The air was filled with anticipation, and even the birds seemed to sing a little louder that day. Amara had never been more grateful for Mike's steady and reassuring presence. His hand held hers tightly as she breathed through the contractions, his words of encouragement helping her stay strong. After hours of labor, their baby girl was born, a healthy and beautiful child with dark eyes and a head full of soft curls. Amara and Mike looked at each other, their hearts overflowing with love as they held their daughter for the first time. The moment felt surreal, like a dream come true. They named her Nia, which meant purpose, as she was the living embodiment of all the hopes and dreams they had for their future. As they gazed down at her tiny face, they knew that this new chapter in their lives would be filled with even more joy, challenges, and love than they could ever imagine. As Nia grew, so did their family. Amara and Mike had always discussed the possibility of having more children, and after much thought and conversation, they decided to try for another. Their love for Nia was immeasurable, and they knew that she would be a wonderful big sister. The decision to expand their family was a natural progression of the life they were building together. Months passed, and Amara discovered she was pregnant once again. The news brought immense joy to their home. Mike was overjoyed at the thought of another child, and Nia, now old enough to understand, couldn't wait to become a big sister. The excitement of waiting for a new addition to their family filled their hearts with anticipation. The couple's love for one another only grew stronger as they shared in the joy of this new chapter. They began preparing for the arrival of their second child, transforming their home once more, this time to welcome a growing family. The day their second child arrived, the air was filled with joy and gratitude. Amara had a smooth labor, and soon their second daughter, Leela, was born, bringing even more love and joy into their family. Nia, who was now 3 years old, stood by her parents, beaming with pride as she held her little sister's hand for the first time. Amara and Mike were overwhelmed with emotion as they looked at their growing family, their hearts full to bursting with the love they had for each other and their children. Leela was a peaceful baby, with eyes that sparkled like stars and a calm demeanor that immediately won the hearts of everyone in the village. As the days passed, Nia took on the role of a protective big sister, always there to lend a helping hand or a reassuring word. Amara and Mike watched their daughters grow closer each day, knowing that their family was becoming more beautiful than they had ever imagined. They felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that their love for one another had created a strong foundation for a happy and prosperous future. As their family grew, so did their responsibilities within the community. Amara and Mike continued to run their school, and their contributions to the village were felt in every corner. They worked together to teach not only the children but also the adults, offering workshops on various topics, from agriculture to literacy. The village thrived, and their children flourished in the environment of love, education, and community. However, with their expanding family and their growing responsibilities, Amara and Mike had to learn how to balance their time between their home, their work, and the community. Some days felt overwhelming, but they always made time for each other and their children. They would take walks together after dinner, reflecting on the day and reconnecting. These moments, though simple, were the heartbeat of their marriage. Their partnership, rooted in love and respect, allowed them to manage all the challenges that came with their full lives. Through it all, their love never wavered, and they continued to grow stronger together. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Amara sat outside their home, gazing at the horizon. Mike joined her, sitting quietly beside her. They watched their daughters play in the yard, laughing as Nia pushed Leela on a small wooden swing. It was a moment of peace, a moment to reflect on all they had built together. Their lives were full of love, of work, of family, and Amara couldn't help but feel grateful for every single moment. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Amara asked softly, turning to Mike. He smiled, his eyes reflecting the warmth of the setting sun. "Every day," he replied. "And I'm thankful for every step of this journey we've taken together. We've built something beautiful, and it's all because of the love we share." Amara leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling a deep sense of contentment. They had found the life they had always dreamed of, and with each passing day, their love continued to grow. As Amara and Mike continued to raise their daughters, they began to realize that their legacy was not just in the love they shared or the school they had built, it was in the values they instilled in their children. Nia and Leela were becoming young leaders in their own right, each carving out their own path in the world. Mike often spoke to them about the importance of knowledge, compassion, and understanding, while Amara shared her wisdom about community and the strength of unity. Nia, the older of the two, had a natural gift for leadership. She helped run the school, organizing lessons and supporting younger students. Leela, though quieter, had a passion for creativity and often organized cultural events and art projects for the children. Together, they were shaping a bright future for the village, continuing the work their parents had started. Amara and Mike watched with pride as their daughters embraced their roles, knowing they were part of something much bigger than themselves. As Amara and Mike entered their later years, they often reflected on the life they had built together. Their children, Nia and Leela, had blossomed into young women full of purpose. Nia, at the age of 18, had taken on more responsibilities within the school, helping to teach the younger children and acting as a mentor. Leela, just 2 years younger, had begun her own artistic journey, creating murals and inspiring the next generation with her creativity. Despite the busy lives their daughters led, family time remained a priority. The weekends were often spent together, picnics by the river, storytelling sessions, and evening walks beneath the stars. Amara and Mike found comfort in these moments, knowing that their daughters had grown into thoughtful, capable individuals who would continue to carry the legacy they had started. It was a comforting thought that their love had shaped the foundation for a future full of promise, and that Nia and Leela would continue to guide the community with compassion and wisdom. As the years went by, the world around Amara and Mike began to change in ways they hadn't anticipated. With the rise of technology and new educational methods, they realized that their school needed to evolve in order to stay relevant. It was a daunting task, but one that they faced together. Mike, ever the forward thinker, began researching new teaching methods, while Amara focused on integrating them into their village's way of life. Together, they sought new ways to keep their students engaged and prepared for a rapidly changing world. The couple also encouraged their daughters to explore their own paths. Nia, ever the ambitious one, began taking an interest in business and technology. She wanted to establish a sustainable program to ensure that the village remained connected to the outside world in a meaningful way. Leela, whose creative talents had flourished, began to organize workshops for the children in the village, teaching them how to use art as a form of expression and healing. Both Nia and Leela showed great promise, and Amara and Mike were excited to see them shape their own futures while continuing the work of their parents. Amara and Mike's love remained as strong as ever. They continued to celebrate their relationship, not just on special occasions, but in the small, everyday moments that made up their life. Whether it was a quiet evening spent together or a lively celebration with the community, they found joy in each other's company. As they grew older, they cherished these moments even more, knowing that the years they had spent together were the true treasure of their lives. One afternoon, during a celebration of their 30th wedding anniversary, the village gathered to honor them. Their daughters spoke fondly of the love and lessons they had learned from their parents. "We are who we are because of the foundation you built," Nia said, her voice filled with gratitude. Leela added, "You taught us that love is not just a feeling, it's an action. And we carry that with us every day." As Amara and Mike looked around at the community they had helped to build, their hearts swelled with pride. Their love had created something lasting and beautiful, a legacy that would continue to inspire generations to come. As the years continued to pass, the time finally came for Amara and Mike to say goodbye. Their health began to decline, and though they had led long, fulfilling lives, the couple knew that their time on earth was drawing to a close. They had lived a life of purpose, with no regrets, and now it was time to rest. The community, which had once watched them build their legacy, now came together in a show of love and respect. Nia and Leela, along with their children, surrounded Amara and Mike in their final days, offering comfort and peace. The village, now a vibrant hub of education, creativity, and unity, stood as a testament to the work Amara and Mike had done. The love they had for each other, their children, and the village would never be forgotten. On their final evening, with their daughters and grandchildren by their side, Amara and Mike shared one last look at the world they had helped create. With their hearts full and their hands still entwined, they passed away peacefully, leaving behind a legacy that would live on forever. The years following Amara and Mike's passing were filled with sadness, but also a deep sense of gratitude for the incredible impact they had made. Nia and Leela, now fully in charge of the school and the community, continued their parents' work with the same love and dedication that had always guided Amara and Mike. The village flourished, and the values of love, unity, and education that had been instilled in everyone continued to shape the future. Amara and Mike's legacy was not just in the buildings or the programs they had created, but in the hearts of everyone they had touched. Their children carried on their love and teachings, ensuring that the story of their family would continue to inspire future generations. The community, though forever marked by their absence, continued to thrive, a reflection of the powerful bond that had brought everyone together. Every year, the village held a special day of remembrance for Amara and Mike, where they honored the couple's lives and the lasting impact they had made. Their love story, once just the beginning of a new chapter, had blossomed into a legacy that would continue to shape the future for years to come. As time passed, new generations were born and grew up in the village, and the story of Amara and Mike became part of the fabric of their community's history. The children who had once been students in the school now became teachers and leaders, passing down the lessons and values that had been taught to them. The village had become a place of learning, love, and unity, where the lessons of the past were honored, and the future was embraced with hope and excitement. Nia, who had taken on the leadership role at the school, often shared stories of her parents with her own children. She would tell them about the love her mother and father had shared, how they had built a life that was both deeply rooted in their community and connected to the world beyond. She would speak of their wisdom, their kindness, and their unwavering belief in the power of education and love. And as she spoke, she knew that the circle of life had come full circle. The legacy of Amara and Mike was alive in the hearts of the next generation, continuing to guide the village toward a brighter future. As time moved forward, Nia and Leela's own children grew into strong young adults. Each of them carried a piece of their grandparents' spirit, some with a passion for teaching, others with an artistic gift, and some with the heart of a leader. The village had changed over the years, adopting new ways while still holding on to its rich traditions. One of Nia's sons, Obi, had a deep love for storytelling, much like his grandmother Amara. He traveled to nearby villages, sharing the tales of his family's legacy and collecting new stories to bring back home. Leela's daughter, Kimi, found herself drawn to community work, helping to expand the school into a place where not just children, but adults could come to learn. The cycle of growth continued, proving that the roots Amara and Mike had planted were now growing into a forest of change. One day, the village council gathered to discuss an important matter. It had been many years since Amara and Mike's passing, and the people wanted to build something permanent in their honor. After much discussion, it was decided a grand library would be built in the heart of the village, a place where knowledge could be preserved for generations to come. The villagers worked together, gathering materials, carving wooden plaques, and painting murals that depicted the story of Amara and Mike. At the library's entrance, a stone carving was placed with the words, "A legacy built on love, knowledge, and unity." When it was finally completed, the entire village stood in awe. This was not just a building, it was a promise that Amara and Mike's vision would never fade. The day of the Grand Library's opening was one of the most joyous the village had ever seen. People from neighboring communities arrived, eager to witness the legacy of Amara and Mike being honored in such a magnificent way. Elders, children, and scholars alike gathered around as Nia and Leela, now the village matriarchs, stood before the carved stone inscription at the entrance. "This library is more than just books and stories," Nia said, her voice filled with emotion. "It is a testament to the power of love, wisdom, and education. May it stand for generations to come." With that, she and Leela cut the ceremonial ribbon, and the villagers cheered. Inside, shelves lined with books, journals, and artistic works reflected the knowledge and creativity that had flourished under Amara and Mike's guidance. Years passed, and Obi, now an elder himself, sat quietly in the Grand Library, reflecting on all that had been accomplished. He thought about Amara and Mike, the 5 Mikes, and the twists of fate that had brought their love story to life. He thought about how their legacy had shaped not just his village but the entire world. On this day, Obi decided to write his own letter to future generations, just as Amara had done. He wrote, "To those who read this, Know that love is the thread that connects all things. In times of joy and sorrow, it is love that guides us. And though we may leave this world, our stories will always remain, carried by those who continue to tell them. Obi sealed the letter and placed it in the library, knowing that one day, someone would find it and continue the journey. As time passed, the world outside the village began to change rapidly. New technologies emerged, bringing both opportunities and challenges. The global movement for sustainability and environmental awareness also reached the village. Nia, now an elder, recognized the need to adapt while preserving the core values that had sustained her family for centuries. She worked with her children and village leaders to establish sustainable practices that honored both the earth and the wisdom of their ancestors. The Grand Library was expanded to include a garden, where visitors could learn about sustainable farming practices and the importance of living in harmony with nature. As the wind whispered through the trees, Mia felt the presence of Amara and Mike, knowing that their story had always been about growth of love, wisdom, and community. With the introduction of sustainable practices in the village, a new chapter in the family's legacy began. The garden that had been added to the Grand Library became a symbol of the village's commitment to honoring both the environment and the wisdom of their ancestors. Visitors from all over the world came to learn not only about Amara and Mike's story, but also about the importance of preserving nature for future generations. Nia, standing among the lush greenery, realized that sustainability was more than just about the earth. It was about sustaining the values that had been passed down through generations. The garden flourished, just as the village and the legacy of Amara and Mike had, nurturing new life and providing hope for the future. Nia felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that this new path would continue the family's tradition of growth, not just for their people, but for the planet as well. As the years turned into decades, Nia's children began to take on more responsibilities in the village. They continued the work of preserving the family's legacy, guiding the younger generation in the ways of love, wisdom, and unity. But as time moved forward, Nia felt her own time coming to an end. One evening, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, Nia shared her final words. The legacy of Amara and Mike is not just in the stories we tell or the buildings we build, she said softly. It is in the love we give to each other, in the ways we choose to shape the world with kindness and wisdom. As long as we carry that forward, their story will never end. With those words, Nia passed away peacefully, knowing that the torch had been passed to the next generation. After Nia's passing, the village mourned but also celebrated her life and the remarkable journey of the family. The Grand Library was filled with portraits of Amara, Mike, Obi, and Nia, each representing a chapter in the ongoing story of their love and wisdom. A statue was erected in the village square, honoring the entire family, with a flame at its base that never went out. It was said that as long as the flame burned, the legacy of Amara and Mike would live on, lighting the way for future generations. And so, the village continued to thrive, its people ever inspired by the love that had started it all. The flame, eternal and bright, symbolized not just the family's journey but the enduring power of stories and the wisdom they imparted. Many years later, when the village had become a thriving center for knowledge and culture, a young child walked into the Grand Library, gazing up at the flame with wonder. She had heard the stories of Amara and Mike, but today, standing before the eternal flame, she felt a deep connection to the past. She asked the librarian, who were Amara and Mike? The librarian smiled, pointing to the books and portraits. They were the heart of this village, and their love created a legacy that has lasted for generations. Their story is not just history, it's alive in all of us. The child nodded, understanding that some stories never truly end. They simply evolve, passed from one generation to the next, always waiting to inspire those who are ready to listen. And so, the story of Amara and Mike continued, woven into the fabric of every life it touched, carried forward by the hearts of those who believed in the power of love, destiny, and the enduring strength of family.